بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Today we're going to introduce Brother, what's your name by the way?
The one you keep mentioning.
Brother Mohammad Quraishi. I mean, you should not laugh at me. Once I was asking my son, what's your name? That happened with me once. Right. So we introduced Brother Mohammad Quraishi, who has something to give us today about the local moon sighting, applying the Sunnah to reality. So we'll just let you see what he has today. Either we confirm or we criticize or object against. Bismillah.
Bismillah. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about like the Shaykh just mentioned, the local moon sighting, applying the Sunnah to reality.
Can you put this jacket? Sorry, but
Put this on. Yeah.
take it. Take it by the right hand. Can you stick it to the jacket?
Okay, so I've got a personal disclaimer. Okay, so I'm Mohammad Quraishi. I'm a moon sighting lead up here in the northwest. I'm from Blackburn, and I started doing moon sightings with New Crescent Society back in 2019. So it's been a few years. I've got a personal disclaimer because there's a lot of issues that have been going on, and this is the first for this masjid to do start Ramadan according to the moon sighting. So although this presentation does explain the work of New Crescent Society, I have taken the liberty to chop and change this information to this presentation to tailor it to my audience, so that's you folks. Certain things will need to be clarified more and stated quite bluntly. Change won't come about by burying our heads in the sand and ignoring the reality before us. Hence, this is not an official New Crescent Society presentation. So that's my personal disclaimer. So, if I get a bit too blunt, don't blame the New Crescent Society, just as this is me. So I'm going to proceed, inshallah. Just to get an idea, from everybody here, have you seen the new crescent moon before? I mean, how many of you have never seen the first crescent at the beginning of the month? Never seen it? No? How many have seen it once or twice, maybe? Yeah? And how many of you have seen it many times? All right, you've got a couple of people here. See it many.
Did you come deliberately to support him? Did you come from Blackburn? I'm against you.
So that's fair enough. So let me move forward. So just a quick introduction to New Crescent Society. That, as you can see, the brother on the left there, he's explaining to children about the moon sighting. That's Imad Ahmad. He's the director of New Crescent Society. And New Crescent Society was founded in 2016. And it's practical astronomy for Muslims, Islamic calendar based on the moon, prayer times based on the sun, and connecting the community to the cosmos. New Crescent Society, the New Crescent Society holds Astronomy and Islam series with the Royal Observatory Greenwich. So we do work with the observatory. The community moon sightings we do, including monthly live streams, including Ramadan and the two Eids. There have been some representation in the media, BBC Wonders of the Moon, BBC Radio, educational videos. And in 2019, New Crescent Society held the National Hilal Conference at the Royal Greenwich Observatory. People, masajid, imams, representations from all over the UK convened in Greenwich for that conference. And we'll show a few pictures later on. But that's essentially the work of New Crescent Society. So let's get our teeth into the actual issues. So New Crescent Society has sighting locations all across, established locations all across the country. We have sighters from Jersey, which is an island off the south of England, off the coast in the channel, one of the Channel Islands, and the most northern sighters we have are in the Shetland Islands. So we do have sighters across the country. But that doesn't mean we don't need more. The more we have, the better things get. So there you've got all the little crescents there across the map of the United Kingdom. So we have had this sighters. I mean, you may not be aware that there's sighters across the United Kingdom. And if you're not aware, you know now. Okay, so my personal journey, I started looking at the moon closely in 2016, but I wasn't looking for the crescent. I got myself a camera and I started photographing the moon. So you can see a couple of my pictures. I mean, this next one here, we could even get some of the craters on the moon there. But come 2019, it went to getting in touch with New Crescent Society and taking more photographs of this time the new crescent moon. So we managed to get them, and I take this opportunity to just go through and photograph the moon until the point where even this Ramadan we sighted the moon here in Mella in Blackburn. I don't know if that's too bright enough to see, but there is a. Can anybody see the crescent on that one?
In the laptop.
You can see on the laptop. All right, okay. If I really have a quick glance at the laptop, you'll be able to see it. So yeah, we did have the Alhamdulillah. This was here. So here at the masjid, people started according to this when we actually sighted the crescent. So we've got moon sighters across the country, and there's Brother Junaid who's joined us today. He does it from Bolton, and when it comes to for the Ramadan sightings and things like that, a lot of the community get together, and sometimes some locations people set up food and barbecue, make it a family event for the community. And we're also pioneers of the UK's first monthly live stream moon sighting. So over a year now, we stream from across the country moon sighting as it happens. So you will get people from London, from Birmingham, from Jersey, from the Shetlands, from Blackburn, Bolton, and other places. You'll get them coming on live and reporting the moon, and a lot of the times you will see the moon as well, and we have people sending photographs. So this happens live every single month. Again, if you weren't aware of that, you're aware of that now. So sighting the moon in the Quran. So let's go to the actual issue of sighting the moon. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Baqarah that the month of Ramadan, in which the Quran was revealed, it's a guidance for the people, a clear proof of guidance and the criterion. So whoever sights the crescents of the month, let him fast it. This is corroborated further in the hadith. So we have a hadith which you've probably heard several times, and it's not just reported in Bukhari and Muslim, but we've got the narration from Bukhari and Muslim on the authority of Abdul Rahman Umar that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Do not fast until you see the crescent moon, and do not." Bukhari Muslim, yeah, that's right. Do not fast until you see the new crescent moon, and do not break the fast until you see it. But if the weather is cloudy, complete the 30 days. Okay? Now, we'll touch upon this now. Okay, so let's look at this. So there's three things which are sunnah from this hadith. Number one, it's sunnah to begin the month of fasting after sighting the new crescent. Number two, it is sunnah to end the month of fasting after sighting the new crescent, and that's by looking on the 29th. Now, if the above are not possible, then it is sunnah to complete 30 days of Shaban or Ramadan if you're going to begin Eid. If it's too cloudy or not possible to sight the new crescent, then complete 30 days. So these things are sunnah. So even if you cannot sight the moon, you're still establishing the sunnah by completing 30 days. So this is not a lose-lose situation. This is not, oh dear, we didn't sight the moon, panic, or we complete 30 days. And it's good to do that. It's reward to do that. So let's look at the reality of what is it, sight the new crescent moon. It's all about lunar visibility. Sighting the moon is visibility. Lunar refers to the moon. So you might hear this now a few times, this concept of lunar visibility. Now, is it cloudy all over the world at the same time? Or do we have part clouds that move in certain parts and certain skies are clear? Yeah? This is what we're going to talk about. So it's a fact that you don't get cloud cover every place in the world. So by that fact, cloud cover is a local phenomena. It's not a global one. So when the Prophet ﷺ tells us if it's cloudy or if there's there's something disturbing the visibility, complete 30 days. Yeah, it can only be local. Yeah, if we start saying let's go to another country, to another country, to another country, obviously you're going to find a country will have no cloud. But what was the point of the Prophet ﷺ saying, if it's cloudy, complete 30 days, if you're not going to fulfill that last part of the Sunnah? So you need to look locally because the phenomenon of cloud is locally. So the evidence is actually in the narration itself. So there was another hadith that's used for the local sighting, and I know the Shaykh has mentioned this a few times already since before and during Ramadan. And it's in Sahih Muslim on the authority of Quraishi. And it's about an incident where
I think it's good to read it.
Good to read it, yeah? It's an incident where
Quraish himself was saying, I arrived in Asham.
Asham, yes, that's right, and did business for al-Fadl bint Harith,
The mother of Ibn Abbas, the wife of Al-Abbas.
the wife of Ibn Abbas. So it was there in Sham that the month of Ramadan commenced, and I saw the new moon of Ramadan on Friday, and then I come back to Medina at the end. Now Abdullah ibn Abbas asked me about the new moon for Ramadan, and he says, when did you see it? And he goes, I said, we saw it on the night of Friday. And he said, did you see it yourself? And he replied, yes. And the people also saw it and observed the fast. And Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, he also observed the fast, whereupon we said, but he said, Ibn Abbas said that we saw it, but we saw it on Saturday night. So some would continue to observe until we fast the 30 fasts.
That's Ibn Abbas now is saying to Quraysh, but we saw it in Medina on the night of Saturday.
The day after, yes.
Quraysh said to him, we saw it at the night of Friday.
Correct. So some would continue to observe the fast till complete 30 days. And I said, is the sighting of the moon by Muawiyah? So Ibn Abbas saying, we're going to go as normal. We're not going to change because you saw the moon. And it says, is the sighting by Muawiyah not valid for you? He said, no. This is how the Messenger of Allah ﷺ has commanded us.
I didn't like the word not valid for you. Translation is not...
Not good, yeah, that's good.
ألا تكتفون برؤية معاوية وصومه? Isn't it enough sufficient for you the moon sighting of Muawiyah and his people? This is the exact translation.
Mm-hmm. And that wasn't the case. Now the thing is,
No, wait. Ibn Abbas said to him something very important.
Go on.
No, you go. Read it.
No, this is how the Messenger of Allah ﷺ commanded us.
Ordered us.
Yeah.
هكذا أمرنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. And this is very important. It should not be passing away without recognizing it. He said, Ibn Abbas said, this is how the Prophet ﷺ ordered us. So there is a command here. Amr. والأمر يفيد as we
Subhanallah.
wujub. The word amara or do or pray, it indicates what? Obligation.
Now let's see the reality. Is it possible for the lunar visibility in Asham to be different from, let's say, the Hijaz?
I want to interrupt you again. I'm so sorry about that.
Go for it.
I don't like to do that, but there is something important that Ibn Abbas said after that.
Okay.
He said, this is how the Prophet ﷺ ordered us. So, either we complete Sha'ban 30, or if we see the crescent, we will break the fast. He put two things here. Either we don't see it because of the cloud, so we complete the Sha'ban, or if we saw the crescent, then that means we can break fast.
SubhanAllah. And the thing is, that's the thing. We never, it's 29 or 30, each month is 29 or 30 days. We will never go to 31, for example. So let's look at a visibility map. Now, visibility maps, you will see a few of these. They're based on actual observation data, and then that's put into something visual so that people can see. So this is an example from earlier, this Islamic year, Rabiul Akhir in November. And usually the green sections where you have various degrees of visibility, but then the yellow and the red, it's not possible to see with the naked eye. So here in the south westerly part of the Arabian Peninsula, it may be possible. It won't be perfect, but it may be possible to see it. But in the yellow and reds, it will be impossible. So there you can see Jordan up there, and outside of the red stripe is Syria, and it would be impossible to see the moon. So the discrepancy of that 1,000 or so miles is a valid for a moon sighting to be different. So also, if we look at some of the fatwa, there's one fatwa of the Muslim World League, and it was signed by many scholars. I'll mention a few in a moment. But there was it's detailed fatwa, but in essence it said, and I'm quoting part of the fatwa here, that in the matter of moon sighting, Islam established its visual sighting over calculations as proven by the clear evidence from Sharia. Also, it has adopted different horizons for local sighting, since it's easier for the ordinary Muslims to follow, although that is the implication upon the detailed explanation of the proofs. As for the promoters of the unification of the beginning and the end of the fasting months are concerned, they are in opposition of what is established by Sharia and sound intellect. And three of these people who were part of the signatories were Shaykh Ibn Baz, there was also Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, and there was also Abu al-Hasan al-Nadwi from India. So amongst others, we had the Muslim World League has scholars from all over the world, and this was early on its foundation on the fourth conference in 1981. So it's well known that it's a local phenomenon, and even it's well known in the UK, but we'll talk about that shortly. Okay, applying exceptions to the rule. So this is important. So some things are a rule, they establish from the deen, and some things are exceptions because of the situation. So I'm going to give you an example. It's a popular example, we've heard of it before, but I've turned it into a little story. So let's say there are a group of Muslims traveling by foot in the desert, and they have run out of food, okay? They are far away from any place where they can obtain food, and they may die in the desert within a couple of hours. However, they come across 2 pigs and decide to take them. Now we know this pig is haram, we cannot eat pork. But as this was an exception, because they may die, they're in the desert, in the sweltering heat of the desert, and they may die. This was an exceptional situation, and the rules of the halal food are suspended temporarily due to the need. So they slaughter one of the pigs and eat to remain alive and continue on their journey. Okay. However, the next day they get hungry again, but by this time they come across a caravan full of food supplies. I think that's spelled food. And at this point they cannot eat the second pig. Rather, they must acquire the food which is halal upon the normative Islamic position. The exception no longer applies now. So this analogy is not necessarily about haram, halal, because pig is a strong example. But what I'm trying to say is that if the rule is to establish the sighting locally, and back in the 80s, we came to the conclusion that we can't sight in the moon in the UK. Okay, so we took a ruling as an exception to take the sighting from outside. However, now Muslims, sought an exception because they concluded they couldn't sight. Okay, so now we have 5 years almost. This Muharram will be 5 years of consecutive years of data recorded of us moon sighters going out and seeing the moon, and we have a viable Islamic calendar of 29 to 30 days going across the whole. So there is no longer an exception to import the moon when the original rule in normative Islam to sight the moon can be applied. Any scholar worth his salt knows that you do not dig your heels in and insist on continuing on the exception when it is negated. When the exception to the rule is negated, you can't use that rule anymore. So, but if you did do that, if you used the story before, this would be amount to slaughtering that second pig to eat when the caravan is present, full of tayyib, halal food is available. So we need to get around this because exceptions are there for reasons. Exceptions are not indefinite. Okay? And look, I've managed to shrink and put all the moon sighting over the last 5 years this was actually gathered for us and other moon sightings in the UK. Yeah? We saw it. Well, we saw it, or if we didn't see it, we complete 30 days. So we have a viable calendar, or working calendar on 29 there. And these are evidences of seeing it. Some of these were taken on the 29th, some of them were taken on the 30th.
Especially in UK, is mostly quite cloudy.
Mostly, but we can see it. We can see it. And this thing about cloud, look, I'll say something about that now. Bangladesh is more cloudy. They have monsoon season. Yeah? They can go for months of cloudiness and rain. Yeah? They have a moon sighting system in place. They have people across the country. They have a council where they come and take the testimonies and everything else. Yeah? They don't have this. They don't have a problem. There's this thing going around that we'll have 3 or 4 months of 30 days and we'll get behind in the calendar. This is merely theoretical. It's impractical. It won't happen. And I know why it may have happened in the past, and we'll come up to the past later on. So let's continue. What's the reality of time? We measure time of day, prayer times, day, month, year, the sun and the moon. All time is measured where you are, where you're located. Time is measured from your locality. So it doesn't matter what measure of time it is, we measure. So it doesn't matter if it's sun setting in another country, we don't import that and use it to pray Maghrib here. We wait for it here to become Maghrib, etc. And it applies in every measure of time since history. And that's, you can see a picture of an astrolabe which was used to compute the heavens. I mean, jokingly, we sometimes say that this is a smartphone and GPS of the centuries old that the Muslim world used to use. So what do we know already about the Islamic calendar and how is it different from the Gregorian calendar? So we probably know a few of these things. I will speed through them. So the introduction of Islamic calendar, so 10 facts. So the calendar is founded by the Prophet ﷺ. In the farewell Hajj speech, this was mentioned about the Arabian, the calendar is based on pre-Islamic, but there are some changes. So this is how, according to the Quran and Sunnah, we would apply the calendar. The Islamic calendar is not a solar calendar like the Gregorian calendar, which is based on the sun and 365 days, and they have 30 and 31 days, and 365 and a quarter days a year. Whereas we in Islamic calendar is lunar based. Yeah, the length of the month is roughly around the moon takes to go around the earth, back to the same phase in the sky. So new moon to new crescent moon, back to new crescent moon. And a lunar Islamic calendar or a month is 29 or 30 days. And we still have 12 months, but the length of the Islamic year is 354 or 355 days. So it's shorter by 10 or 11 days. Okay? The month begins with the moon sighting. Now there's a misconception here. We decide whether the month is 29 or 30 days by sighting the new crescent moon. Now the new crescent is the crescent here. Okay, the first crescent. The new crescent will be visible. It's not the new moon. The new moon is invisible. we need to wait for the invisible phase to go, and the first crescent, the hilal, what's mentioned is the hilal to be visible. And that's when we commence the month, when the first crescent is visible. It's easy and practical how it works. It's 29 and 30 days, and we look on the 29th of each month. And if we don't see the moon, we complete 30 days. And like I said before, it begins with the new crescent moon and not the new moon. So this is important now. It's a local calendar. Yeah, each country might see the moon on a different day, and the visibility data shows this. Some countries won't see the moon at all. Some places will be difficult. Some places will be easily visible, and some places not at all. Yeah. So in this example, according to this lunar visibility data, the time zones, longitude, latitude, date lines, time zones have nothing to do with the visibility of the moon. This notion that we should follow X country because it's in a similar time zone as us, from lunar visibility doesn't make any sense. It doesn't always match. Okay, the levels of lunar visibility spread across the Earth in curves, not in straight lines or not in arbitrary time zones. Time zones, they move on outside national borders. So who said that it should go around the border? It's a government decision, it's a political decision of how the time zone works. It's not really has any basis as far as visibility of the moon. Here in the UK, in this example, the UK has the same visibility as the Middle East, India, Australia, which is on the other side of the world. So our visibility in this situation would be the same as them, and they're not in the same time zone, they're not in the same longitude, but the visibility there, which is nothing for us, is there, whereas people in this section, you'll see California, the Americas exactly in this example will be able to see the moon. So it's actually the very nature of the visibility of the moon that works, which is the system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, because at the end of the day, He is the creator. And that actually, when we practice this, when we follow the Sunnah, it forces us to stay local. So the Islamic calendar and the seasons. So Islamic calendar does not match seasons because it's going back 10, 11 days every year. We'll go through different seasons. And effectively, it'll take 33 years for us to get back to the same place as shown in this chart. The Islamic calendar has 4 sacred months. They are Rajab, and then you have 3 which are the follow-on one from another. So Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, Muharram. And in those months, war wasn't allowed. And, we're commanded, do not wrong yourself in these months. There is no Nasi, the 13th month. In the pre-Islamic Jahili Arabs, sometimes used to add a 13th month. And this was banned by the Prophet ﷺ, and it is banned in his farewell speech, and it's also banned in the Quran. Why a 13th month? The Arabs used to, the first reason, insert a month so they could go back to war. So they wanted to avoid the restrictions of the sacredness of the month. And second reason, they wanted to match with the seasons. So it's similar to the solar. The Meccans did not want to go the Hajj to be in the summer so that they could benefit from more trade in the autumn, where it's seasonal, you get more crops and you can sell the produce. And number 10, you can sight the new crescent in the UK. It's actually very simple, and it can be done in your own area and perhaps even your home. We have a 1-minute video, but I won't put it on now. All you need is a clear view of the sunset on the 29th of the month. And let's have a look briefly at the science of the moon. So how to sight the moon? Simple steps. Number 1, you find a clear view of the sunset. Now, which horizon does the sun set? Anybody know? On the western horizon, yes. So that's the horizon. You find the western horizon where the sun sets. So find a clear view of that. And when the sun sets, you need to identify and mark where it sets. That's the second step. After that, you wait 15 to 30 minutes and look above for the new crescent to the left of the place where the sun set. And inshallah, it being clear, you can see it there, see the crescent. So it's a very straightforward process once you get to know it. And then you recite the dua, Allahumma ahillahu alayna bil yumni wal iman wa salamati wal islam rabbi wa rabbukullah, when you see the crescent moon. Share the good news. We encourage people to take photos, send them to our New Crescent Society Facebook group, share with friends and family on your WhatsApp, your Instagram, because this way people will get to know that you can see the moon in the UK, and they'll see that people are doing the sightings. And we also have our live moon sightings on Facebook, and you can post pictures on there too from your location. But let's continue. So based on what I've just gone through, yeah, I've got a question here for you. Which moon does the Islamic calendar start with? Is it the new moon, A? How many of you think it's the new moon? B, the new crescent. Yeah, okay, you got some of you put your hands up. And the full moon. I don't think everybody's going with the full moon. So just shout out anybody. Which of these is the new moon? A, B, or C? The new moon, yeah? Who said C? No, it says new moon. The new moon is invisible, like I said. So it's A. Yeah? So we need to have that differentiation. New moon, new crescent. There's a difference. And here, how do you sight the moon? Is it A, B, or C? I'll let you read. Yeah, brothers, A, correct. Yeah. So can we unite? We're getting to the end now, inshallah, of the presentation. So let's talk about can we unite and solutions. And yeah, we say yes. But there's a way to get to that. There's a plan to get to that. There's what is the problem and what is the solution. Okay, and I've put the liberty to put Dar es Salaam and City Mosque in the pictures. So let's look at the problem and solution. The root of the problem is this. When Muslims first arrived in the UK, they faced cloudy weather. So they thought, we know it's cloudy and, typical British weather. We had less population. We have a lot more Muslim population today than we had back then. And we have a lot more trained moon sighters today than we had then. But back then, the few people that tried struggled, and they concluded we cannot see or sight the moon in the UK. And as a result, they gathered together with that information. Some of the religious people gathered together as well. I believe it was in Blackburn, in Masjid al-Islam. And they concluded we can't sight the moon. And they sought fatwas. They sought amongst themselves, and they even asked abroad to the educational universities, Islamic universities, about a fatwa. And they were given the exception. We talked about the exception before, and the exception was, okay, you can borrow the sighting from a different country. So this created new problems. So different masajid adopt different sightings. Some go to Morocco, some go to South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, etc., etc. So the root problem is we're importing the moon. That's the root cause. And because we're taking from different places, that's it. So the main reason we have different Eids in the UK or different Ramadans or any other one is importing the moon. We take the moon from somewhere else. Okay, so let's go through the problems. First, let's tackle the Saudi Arabia. The Saudi problem. The issues with Saudi Arabia is that what we get is declarations of scientifically impossible sightings from Saudi Arabia. We also get the use of CCD imaging. Now, this went around a while, especially this year, last year, the year before that, even before that. We get announcements that it's been sighted. We get no photographic evidence. I'm not saying it's a requirement, but look, we're in the 21st century. We've got the equipment. We should use it to capture it. 24 hours later, we get a grainy black and white image with a slither of a crescent, and it's not an actual photograph, it's a CCD image. Now, CCD images is very complicated, but you're going to add a camera to a laptop, looking through a telescope. You have filters there. You have light filters, solar filters to filter out the sun's rays. You've got infrared filters, etc. It's a very complicated process, but you effectively not getting a naked eye sighting. And you're not getting a plain visual sighting like you get through binoculars. It's the computer interpreting light and recreating an image on a screen. So you will have a representation of something that looks like a moon on the screen, but it wouldn't be a naked eye sighting. So this isn't really acceptable for sighting the moon purposes. So we get those moon sighting, like I said again, impossible on the Saudi horizon. But we're not just making this up, multiple academic studies and reports on this have concluded, both by Saudi and non-Saudi astronomers themselves. Okay? So I'm not going to just pick on Saudi. I'm not here just to pick on Saudi. Look, there's other issues as well. There's the Morocco problem and the South Africa problem, or any other country we import from, okay? And now I'm not dissing the countries or anything like themselves. They've got good systems where they are, but they do local sighting, okay? But we make it our problem because by importing sightings, when it is impossible to see on the UK horizon, we start a day early here, okay? And when UK moonsighters, if we went according to that, go out to sight the moon, thinking it's the 29th, it is actually the local 28th, when it's always impossible to sight the new crescent moon. So you are actually hindering moon sighting efforts here in the UK. Because by borrowing a foreign date, wherever you are on Earth, basically, it is always impossible to see the new crescent moon on the 28th day. So this causes major issues for us in the UK. I keep clicking the wrong thing, hang on. And it is very likely what caused the problem of not being able to see the moon in the first place. Okay, now I'm saying that, yes, we did have people saying back in the 80s, it's too cloudy, etc. But think about this issue now, okay? We put 1 foot here, 1 foot in Morocco. You know, if it was to believed that we cannot sight the new crescent in the UK, how in the 80s, 70s did Muslims determine the first of the month if we didn't see the moon? And the only answer to that is they imported it from abroad. And this is exactly the issue which is being replicated by using a dual system to say we look in the UK and if not, we'll take from abroad. Because when you take it from abroad, it's still importing the sighting, and when it's impossible to see on the UK horizon, this results in starting the month a day early and attempting to sight the crescent on what would be the UK 28th. Whereas if we follow strictly the UK moon sighting, we regularly sight the new crescent here and have plenty of and have a perfectly functional UK Islamic calendar, which has been proven to be the case for almost 5 years running. So fact, I will repeat it again. If you try to sight the new crescent on the actual 28th of your locality, you will never sight the moon. It'll be an epic fail. This is important. Yeah, and I've got this is what happened in the 80s. All the evidence indicates that we borrowed a date back in the 70s, 80s, and then when we went on the 29th thinking, it must be because it's too cloudy in the UK. This is what happened. Imad Ahmed, the director of New Crescent Society, 5 or 6 years ago, when starting out, him and Sheikh Suleiman Ghani from Croydon used to go out moon sighting. For 6-7 months they went, and they never saw the moon. Yeah? Until they figured this out. And the minute this was figured out, then you get to see the new crescent more and more, until we've got a viable calendar now.
I have one question.
Go for it, Sheikh.
For example, the whole peninsula was cloudy,
Yes.
but we saw the moon here, the crescent.
Yeah.
Will they be fasting based on the UK sighting of the crescent?
Yeah, this is very important because whether it's Saudi Arabia, Bangladesh, South Africa, Morocco, they don't tell anybody to take their moon. In fact, they say follow your own moon.
This is the point.
This is the point. They follow your own moon. Don't take it from us. Yeah? This is what they say. So the root problem is importing. So even if Saudi or Moroccan sightings were valid, importing the moon still causes division. So summary, why do we have a split Eid in the UK? The moon was allegedly not visible in the UK, but likely people ended up looking on the 28th. Different groups relied on different countries, mainly Morocco, Saudi Arabia, though others exist like South Africa and Turkey. And even if Saudi scientifically or Morocco observed correctly, this still causes problems for the UK. So we've identified the problem. Now let's go to the solution. The problem won't go away if we do nothing. In over 30 years, only a handful of occasions have Ramadan and Eid been celebrated together by coincidence. Yeah, all those reds are when we didn't. This problem will not go away by itself, and inshallah, with your leadership, we can solve this issue. The definition of insanity, this is an Albert Einstein quote, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So we're going to have to do things differently. So this is the National Hilal Conference. There's a picture of everyone outside Greenwich University that New Crescent Society held with the Royal Observatory Greenwich, and that was April 2019. So we made efforts underway to outreach and get people together. So there was a conference, people deliberated, talked about the issues. On the right, you have standing up there Shaykh Abdul Qayyum from East London Mosque. And this brother here he's from the Regent's Park Mosque. And if you notice here, you have Sheikh Shoaib Hassan as well. So a lot of people gathered, even if we had delegates from Blackburn and Lancashire Council Mosque go there as well. But what was the findings? What was the context of the UK? So the context, there are different positions. Hang on, let's go back. There are different positions followed by the masjids in the UK. And the first point was that different positions have some basis, yeah, whether that was the exception rule, so they had the juristic difference. Sometimes it's rational, sometimes it's practical. So there's some basis, people have a basis for why they decide to do what they do. Secondly, in order to have a UK Islamic calendar, that will need a consensus on what criteria to use. The majority of mosques fall into the two positions that we're there, following Saudi Arabia or following another country, Morocco, South Africa, etc. So that's basically where we are now, towards the United Eid. So what type of solution do we need? We need a solution which ticks a few boxes. And those requirements would be, it has to be Islamically valid. And I know here we'll say, yeah, that's enough. Islamically valid is fine. But take into the context of Muslims and the situation across the UK, it also has to be scientifically valid. Yeah? And I don't mean scientific as in, evolution, things like that. I'm talking about factual science, observable science, real science. It's got to be acceptable to the community, and it's got to be practical for the community. So let's look at what we have so far. Calculations. Islamically valid, we put a tick, but some people say, minority say majority. Scientifically valid is calculations, yes. Is it acceptable to the community? And for that reason of the differences, majority of people say calculations is haram. You have to do the sighting. And practical for the community, there's no hindering in using calculations. But it doesn't tick all the boxes, yeah, and most people won't accept it. Following Saudi, Islamically valid, yeah, it's for them, and there's plenty of verdicts which say so, but is it scientifically valid? So we've raised a question mark about that, whether it's actually possible to see it when it's declared. Is it acceptable to the community? No, I mean, if you look at the community overall, it won't be acceptable in order for unity purposes. And some of the reasons we've gone through today. Practical, there's no practical obstacle per se. Morocco, similar situation. Is it Islamically valid? Yes. Is it scientifically valid? Although the problem isn't the same as Saudi Arabia, as I explained, for the UK, we starting a day early, it disrupts our calendar. And I'm talking about following the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and doing the sighting here. Acceptable to the community? No, because again, people want to follow different countries. Practical, again, there's no practical obstacle. So what do? Global sighting. Islamically valid, there's opinions which say yes, but to be fair, there's no such thing as global, and we'll explain that why. Scientifically valid is questionable, so I'll explain that now. If, let's say, the first visibility of the new crescent is in California, yeah, and we want to say global sighting, anywhere in the world we see it, we start. Does Australia wait 17, 18 hours? It's impractical to ask them to do that. Yeah, they're majority of their way through the day already. Okay. So, is it acceptable to community? No. Is it practical? No, it's not practical for the same reasons I just gave there. So let's look at UK or local sighting. So UK sighting, is it Islamically valid? Yes. It's a Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to sight the crescent moon where you are. Is it scientifically valid? Absolutely, it's scientifically valid. Is it accepted to the community? Even though they don't practice it, I'd say yes. Why? Because when you say, go where you are and sight the moon, nobody can argue with you. Because it's Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Is it practical for the community? So, for now, I put a question about practicality. But, like I said previously, we've have 5 years now almost of moon sighting and data, so it is practical. What it requires is for us to do our duty, to fill the duty and sight the crescent and act accordingly. So yes, it's practical because it's been tested. We should practice it, but because we're doing it now 5 years almost up and down the country, like I said, it can be done, and it's literally ready to go. It's working right at the moment. We have a calendar of 4 years, 9 months, alhamdulillah, demonstrated that it's totally possible and functional. And before this, it was never functional. We would sometimes get too many 30-day months and occasionally 28. But that's because nobody was sighting the moon. So we collated the data, and this is how it normally works. It usually works 50-50. So you'll have 6 months of 29 days, 6 months of 30 days, or you'll have 5 and 7, or 7 and 5. And these are perfectly viable. So even our UK data, by actual moon sighting, our sighters across the country, are working just as viable as Morocco and even the Quran calendar. Even the Quran calendar is calculated, but it's still as viable as anywhere else. So there's no problem. There's absolutely no problem in us having a UK Islamic calendar and sighting the moon here in the UK. So is it really too cloudy? So look at this map. So in January 21, we had a day when it was almost complete cloud cover according to the weather forecast. Look at the weather picture outside, snowing. Yeah, so we had to look at the moon. The only place we might have had is here, Northern Ireland and Cornwall. Yeah, the rest of the country was cloudy. But we know never to trust 100% weather forecasts. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does what He likes. And look, in Bolton, we had the new crescent moon sighted in between clouds. Yeah, I've been on a moon sighting live stream, and what happens is the sun sets and then the moon will follow slowly afterwards. And as I'm on the live call, the bottom of the crescent is coming down under the cloud, like downwards, and I'm pointing at it while we're live. And bit by bit, the tip of the bottom bit of the crescent came down until you could see the whole crescent. And we just need people to go to the location, look for the moon and wait, even if it's cloudy, because it just takes that clear patch in the clouds for the moon to become visible again. So, and again, we get pictures from all over the country. So New Crescent Society have a roadmap. Phase 1 is education outreach, listening to the community. So this is part of outreach. Training people in the moon sighting around the country, setting up locations, a way to report. Now with the pandemic last couple of years, we took the moon sighting trainings, rather than doing them in communities and on in masjids and things like that, we took it online. And when we took it online onto Zoom, we had exponential growth. We went from one WhatsApp group with all our UK sighters to several WhatsApp groups in every region. So we had one for Scotland, one for the Northwest, etc., London, Wales, etc. And mashallah, it was more than, easily like 6-7 times plus, maybe even 10 times the amount of moon sighters increased through the trainings that we did. And then we returned to the community and the mosque with a viable solution. Again, part of what I'm doing today. And the final, which we haven't done yet, is a launch a national calendar. So inshallah in Muharram, it won't be a launch, it'll be a pre-launch. Inshallah, we will start a trial of the UK Islamic calendar. And any masjid which wishes to sign up to the calendar and to the moon sighting reports formally can do that, and we will give everybody the information. And the information is available anyway, but if you want to do it more formally, that can be done. So we're between stages 3 and 4 at the moment. So summary of the proposal is UK Muslims to follow the UK calendar based on sightings in the UK. It's not cloudy everywhere, usually anyway. Majority of the time, it's not cloudy everywhere in the UK at all time. And with enough sighting of locations, we don't need to import the moon. And we've proven that already. We have almost 5 continuous years of data, which proves this now. And this means we have in the UK, we have its own Islamic calendar, okay? So why is this solution so powerful? This is a new solution for the UK, but it's not a new solution for Islam. It is a sunnah ordered by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Currently, other countries use this system, including the ones we follow. They follow local sighting, but we're just taking it off them. So we know it works because they do it as well. So at the end, we know what the problem is and we know what the solution is to work there. So we just need to get everybody on board. So what's things looking like? So again, we have visibility. This was Ramadan, and this is when we did see the moon on the 2nd, even here in Blackburn. And as you can see, first visibility was on that day. Yet Saudi Arabia was the only country to start the day before. So this is what causes problems.
Saudi was wrong.
To put it in shortly, yes. Likely Eid date. So people want to know when Eid is. We expected the UK moon to be based on the UK moon. Eid will be on the 3rd of May. As you can see here, the 1st of May, it's been very difficult to see the moon. The countries that will see are mainly the Americas and possibly Morocco here. Yeah?
We may be with Morocco then.
Well, we're outside. We're outside.
I mean, Allah
Allahu Alam, yeah.
Possibly, yeah.
Yes, what we'll have to do here in the UK is we'll have sighters across the UK, but we're going to have people in the south to be more on guard.
Next FMA could be.
Sorry? We'll have that, but it's extremely difficult, even on a sea code, to see it. But we'll make as much effort as possible, inshallah, to look for it. But then we're waiting for the next day. So Morocco, 2nd of May, most likely. If they don't see the moon, they will be following day, because we started the same. And Saudi is 2nd of May, even though it doesn't really align, but they have to complete 30 days. So they will do it. So the Shawwal new crescent moon, inshallah, we'll have to look for it, even though it's going to be difficult. It's sunnah to go out on the 29th, which is a Sunday, the Sunday the 1st of May. And it will be live streamed, so up and down the country. So this is when we need to go out and look for the crescent. So inshallah, stay connected with us, and I'll show you how to stay connected with us. And we can arrange to do it, whether it's going back to Mella or we can go down to Moore Park and attempt to sight the moon. And inshallah, even if we don't sight it on the 29th and we have to complete 30 days, we'll go out on the 30th as a training exercise. So you get that experience in moonsighting, and inshallah we will see it on that day as expected. So we've got next steps following New Crescent Society on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can use your locations on time and date, and there's different apps on your phone to find out how and where to sight the moon, and when the moon set is and when the sunset is. Join your moon sighting community, which I'm going to inshallah get you to do. Invite others and share what you're doing, and share the moon sighting reports and photographs with everybody, and that's how you're going to do it. So we tend to also share them on our Facebook page, but there's also a website, moonsighting.org.uk, which is another of our moon sighting organizations, where you can give your testimony and send in photos as well, so we collect the data. And so we have a WhatsApp group with simple common sense rules. But if anybody who's now interested, go to newcrescentsociety.org/Preston. We've set up a web page with a bit of information on there. And there's a link to a WhatsApp group. And we can all get organized in there with the moon sighting going forward, inshallah. newcrescentsociety.org/Preston. Nice and easy. So I'm going to conclude, but I'm just going to reminder of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects from us. Okay, as believers, we're expected to be steadfast on the Quran and Sunnah. We have seen the Ummah.
God expecting.
Sorry?
Expecting from us.
If he's okay, sorry. What should we say?
Rephrase it. We are expected. You said God expected from us.
No, like in terms of if we given duties, we expected to fulfill them that way, in that sense.
Expect, that means we don't know if it take place or not.
Yeah, well, we don't know whether they take place or not. But
sorry,
we're given us certain things.
Yeah.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us certain things to practice, and we're expected to be steadfast on the Quran and Sunnah. We have seen the Ummah straying away, and recognize the need to bring people back to the way of the beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we want to be counted among those people that Allah will bring, whom, number one, that He will love and they will love Him. Number two, will be humble towards the believers and firm towards the disbelievers. Number three, strive in the way of Allah. And number four, don't fear the blame of the blamers. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from amongst them. Ameen.
I have to give some comments.
Yes, please, Shaykh. Are you having some comments here?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Alhamdulillah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Nothing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala issues for us which causes us difficulty and division. We can't say that. We know that this religion, alhamdulillah, is a religion of facility, flexibility, ease. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. Allah did not set difficulty in matters of religion, matters of deen. No. Some points we need to notice here. Number one, the Prophet ﷺ did not put this issue under the title, under the subject of obeying the Amir. Not necessarily. Because obeying the Amir, that means one Amir for the whole world, that That means when he said fast, we have to fast, all of us in the world. But we'll be facing the hadith of Ibn Abbas when he said, but for us we did not see the moon. So we do not depend, take it dependently, obeying Muawiyah and Sham. Although Muawiyah was the Khalifa at that time. He was Khalifa. So Ibn Abbas was not sufficed with the crescent sighting of Muawiyah. Muawiyah fasted Friday. Ibn Abbas said, but we fasted Saturday, the next day. So he was asked, isn't it enough for you? The crescent sighting of Muawiyah? I said, no. This is how our Prophet ﷺ ordered us. I don't know if the people of Hadith, our Hadith, did they see that Hadith before? Not this Hadith. I don't know. The Prophet ﷺ said, فَإِنْ غُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ, if it was covered on you by clouds. As the brother mentioned, that the clouds will not be covering the whole world, the whole earth, from all its angles. So, wasn't it sufficient, for example, that it must be that at any place in the world, it may not be cloudy. So how can you say that when in Saudi Arabia, then we have to, all the Muslim world should be following? Don't take it politically. I'm not in that position. This is not a matter of politics. And no one should be disappointed with us when we say, for example, don't follow Saudi Arabia on this issue. Why? Obeying the Prophet ﷺ is more important than obeying anyone else. So what is the benefit? It becomes meaningless when the Prophet ﷺ says, فَإِنْ غُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ, when it becomes cloud. Because at any place, it must be unclouded, clear. When the Prophet said, so those people, when they say you must follow there, they are in matter of fact deactivating or cancelling this term, فَإِنْ غُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ, if it becomes cloudy. In fact, this hadith is evident that the Prophet is talking about the locals. He's giving his instruction to the locals, because it will not be cloudy in all the earth. And the Prophet ﷺ told us that there will not be a place, east, west, south, north, but Islam will be entering. Right. We did not hear since 1,400 years that the Ummah divided because of Christian cycle. Did you hear? I don't see in history that the Ummah were fighting, they became divided because of the Christian cycle. I can see that the Ummah became divided because Ilm al-Kalam, the philosophy that was interfered in Islam. That's why we have philosophy cults, Ash'ari, Maturidi, Mu'tazili, etc. These are the things that cause division in the Ummah. By the confession of Imam Ghazali, he said that this Ilm al-Kalam caused division, bloodshedding, hatred, everywhere because of it. This what caused the division of the Ummah. I have wished that the problem of the Ummah that may cause the division was the Moonsighting. You know, if the division of the Ummah was because of that, it's easy. But we have bigger problems that really caused the division of the Ummah, and we're not struggling to solve it. If we saw the person tonight, how long it takes for the Saudis to get the news? Sometimes before I get to my room, in Saudi they will know that in Britain they saw the person already. It's easy now.